So I ordered up a set of Rokblokz mud flaps for my 2013 Crosstrek. This is how they come packaged. Cellophane wrapped, and then the hardware is taped to the outside, and then all of the instructions are inside. Here's the steps to install the front mud flaps. 8mm socket to remove these two, or you can use a Phillips screwdriver. Also, there's a little plastic push button up here. I've already pulled that out. I'm going to reuse my factory splash guard because with this being a pre-owned Crosstrek, you can see there's a little bit of a line and probably some paint wear there. There's also a little push button up here. These two on the front are you can screw them out a little bit with a Phillips screwdriver, and then they basically just pull right out. And then we also need to remove this one up here. There's another one. If we don't pull that one, then we can't pull this inner fender liner back. Once you have the factory splash guard off, there's another little button down here. You can also use a Phillips screwdriver, spin that a few turns, and then it pretty much releases itself, and then pull it out. That gives us the ability to manipulate this inner fender liner. And the next thing we'll do is we've got this little L bracket. I've installed one of the short clips on it already. First thing I need to do is install the long clip down here, and I'll take my gigantic screwdriver and spread this out just a little bit. Makes it easier to install, plus it doesn't have quite the tendency to scratch up the paint as much. And we slip that over the metal, and then manipulate it just a little bit to get it to line up correctly on the hole where we pulled out that push pin. Yeah, I pushed mine back a little bit too far towards the inside. Yeah, I think that's about as good as I'm going to get it. You kind of have to install it at just a little bit of an angle. And then this inner fender liner slides in between the clip and your lower rocker guard plastic. Also pull out these two plastic nut plates, nut threaded whatever, and install these two. I'm actually going to leave these in place because I have decided to do this a little bit differently. I bought some long stainless screws that match the thread pattern. They're metric screws. They're 5mm by 0.80 pitch. And then I take my little L bracket and then the instructions call for using one of the long screws like that. I actually ended up on my other mud flap, I had to use the long screw, the top Pretty sure it's the top because we use the thick spacer on the top hole. And by the time you stack the mud flap, the screw, the washer, and the thick spacer, you only had about that much screw sticking through the back side of the mud flap. I have some Dynaflex 230 sealant. I'm just going to shoot a little bit back there. All that does is, if there's any scratches on the paint, it'll keep the moisture out of there. Tuck this back in. Pull it back out maybe just a little bit so you can get your L bracket slid in place. Pull down on that just a little bit. I've also added a smaller flat washer. The problem here with the washer that's included is it's not very much smaller than the head of the screw. You can see here how you move the screw around and you've got a hole visible. So, stacking two washers. Phillips screwdriver. Probably have to manipulate this L bracket a little bit to get the holes to line up correctly. And just be sure you tuck this back inside first, which I should have been paying attention to. And tighten that down. Maybe you want to check your alignment here. Because once you put your factory splash guard back in place, you won't be able to get to this screw. At some point we can reinstall this little push pin. And get my Loctite short screw, long screw. I'll add some thread locking compound to my long screw. Thick spacer. Goes on the top. Add some thread locker to my short screw. Install it. And long spacer on the top. Are loosely threaded into place. my short screw. My short screw goes down here, along with another fender washer. Short screw, fender washer. Easier said than done getting that threaded into the nut plate. That is being very stubborn. These have some inward and outward adjustment. I'm going to adjust them all the way in. Take a look from behind and get an idea of how level they are or aren't. It's kind of hard to get a perfect level with the tire turned in. I usually use the tire as sort of a reference from my side to side, and then the ground is the bottom. Once you have the mud flaps installed, you can kind of look down the side of the car and get an idea of how level they are or aren't. The front one doesn't look too bad. Back looks to be just a little bit too far out at the top. And this side doesn't look too bad. It looks like the front might be just a little bit further in than it is on the other side. So the correct screws that I've bought, I've gotten 2 of these and 4 of that size. So